Hi, you guys. It's COCO.
It's Nikki Reardon.
And this is the next episode of Share Your Screen. So last week we did a new format that y'all really seem to love, not just on YouTube, but also on TikTok. It was really cool to see. So we're going to do it again this week. And if there's ever a really interesting topic, though, that we do want to do another deep dive for, we will. We saw some of your comments that like the deep dive. But today's episode, we are going to be talking about two pretty big topics and then dive into our bad ideas only.
Yes.
And then some personal things at the end. But the topic that I wanted to really touch on today is something that I had mentioned about in a podcast I did on my solo. And the same day that I published the podcast, the news clip of a guy rushing the stage for Drew Barrymore came out. So I think it's just something that's really pressing and a scary trend.
And I feel like it's been on the rise in the past 6 months. That's what really terrifies me about it.
Right.
It doesn't seem like, oh, whoa, these incidents are happening. It seems like incidents are happening with like less time interval between them.
Exactly.
Repeatedly.
And I think we have theories on why that is in the internet, but it's essentially about why fame is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a person, and kind of this rise of obsessed fans that are really putting a lot of people in danger. So we're going to touch on Drew Barrymore, Taylor Swift, people in the past who have unfortunately died because of fame and fans. So that'll be my first topic.
Okay, my topics are for my two like primaries. One is there's been like recent drama between Billie Porter and Anna Wintour and Harry Styles, where Billie Porter called out Vogue and Anna Wintour for essentially queerbaiting and making Harry Styles the cover of Vogue. He was the first male to ever be the cover of Vogue, and he was like doing it in a dress and blah blah blah. And Billie Porter made a lot of really great points, but I also just wanted to talk about like more from a macro lens. Also just like of like the degendering of fashion in general, and like how mainstream media plays into how they can use their voice essentially to uplift the voices of other people. I think is like an interesting thing that also has kind of like come from this discussion. And then the other thing I've been really thinking about a lot this week randomly is like, do you think having a genre as a music artist is dying?
Ooh,
That's like something I
have
wanted
some
to
thoughts on
discuss
that.
later too. Because I do too.
I think it's why we're seeing a certain genre at the top of the charts, because everything else has become so fragmented, and like the formula that people followed for pop music doesn't really work anymore.
Right. And then, yes, we have many bad ideas only. A lot of mine about Olivia Rodrigo this week for some reason.
Yes, the originator of our bad ideas only, which was Nicky pitched a Geico commercial for Olivia Rodrigo, and you guys loved it so much. So this is our new format.
I don't know. It's something about her is like so marketable to me. Like I just find her so interesting from both like a personal perspective, but also like a career perspective.
And I think it's because she's still like, she's so successful and yet so new in her career that it can go in many directions.
That is, I think, a really good point too. It's like she's really reached the pinnacle of fame, but has so much left to do. And no one has really, no one's really up there like that right now.
Whereas it's sometimes hard to do that for legacy artists, because it's like, well, they've already done that and that and that.
Yeah.
And so some of my bad ideas are going to be about Super Bowl commercials, because you guys loved that for some reason. So I have a Super Bowl commercial for Selena Gomez.
Mine are, number one, I have a prediction that Olivia Rodrigo is about to completely rebrand away from purple to red. I have a whole conspiracy.
And I haven't heard his theory yet.
It's a conspiracy theory. And I'm confident in him, right?
Okay.
This is actually not even, like, I would venture, this is not a prediction, like, it is going to happen.
August 2023, you heard it here first.
Second, I think bad ideas only, Billie Eilish should start a hair dye company.
Ooh.
Like, I was really inspired by what we were talking about last week with Addison Rae.
Yeah.
And you talking about how the celebrity hair space is so untapped. And even deeper than that, I think specifically hair dye is so untapped.
Yeah.
Like, even the big celebrity hair care brands we have now aren't doing dye. It's like care and preservation and oils and conditioner, blah, blah, blah.
Which makes sense, because those celebrities are more middle-aged, and so I feel like Billie has a younger audience that would like dye, but like an audience that's 40-year-olds, they're not necessarily dyeing their roots hot pink on a random Tuesday. So if there's any like celebrities that you guys want bad ideas for, brand pitches, collabs that we haven't mentioned, Yeah, let us know because we would love to reply to your comments, especially on TikTok. Those comment replies are so helpful. So, with that being said,
You take it away.
yeah. Okay, so this is going to be a more serious tone now. It's so crazy the timing of it that, and I don't even think it was a coincidence. I think it's just a reflection of how common this is becoming.
Mm-hmm.
But I published a podcast last Monday on Ahead of the Curve with COCO where I basically did a deep dive on like why I truly believe that fame is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a person. And it was more so inspired by what we're seeing recently with Taylor Swift, with like fans showing up to restaurants, people dressing as her, which I'll get into as well. But specifically, the same day I posted that episode, I started getting tagged in videos on TikTok. And it was Drew Barrymore and Renee Rapp were doing something on a stage, like a kind of talk.
Yeah.
And you see a man rush the stage and he's like, you know me, like, Drew, you know me. And Renee Rapp immediately read the situation and ushered her off stage.
Yep. And security came out.
Yeah, security came out. But not only that, what gives me the chills is the story doesn't end there. And this was only 5 days ago. Since that Monday, the man was then arrested because he showed up to her New York home. And there's videos of him on the internet where he's basically was making a chronicle online of him trying to figure out where Drew Barrymore lived.
Insane.
And he was talking to locals in the area. I don't want to say the city, but he was talking to locals in the area, like filming himself being like, what city are we in? Like, do you know where she lives? Like, and so the fact that he was publicly documenting it, he clearly doesn't think what he was doing was wrong. No, and that's scarier to me than someone who knows.
It's really scary. And also, something that is always like a weird situation to me is when someone does something like inherently creepy or like stalker like that, like coming up on stage or like attempting to come up on stage. The real scary thing is that it's not illegal.
I know.
And because of that, they can't do anything. Like they can kick him out of the venue, but that's really it. And then something like this happens where then they then show up to the home. And also, like, I think it shouldn't be illegal, right? Like, it's weird, but, like, there needs to be very specific lines about what people can be arrested for, or else that's the way cops can abuse their power. You know, oh, we saw you at this place. You were acting creepy.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, I don't think it should, but it is a really scary thing, too, where, like, they know that person's not going to stop. Like, if they truly have no shame or, like, no self-awareness enough to stop a like literally on stage lecture, walk through the entire alleyway and try and talk to you in the middle of like a conversation.
You're
like,
working. You're
working. Like they're very clearly not going to stop at just like being escorted out of one place.
Exactly.
So I don't know. It's just like a weird situation.
And then exactly. And on top of that, Gene Aiko and Big Sean recently filed for a temporary restraining order because a man had been showing up to her concerts and events, and then there was already raising some alarm bells, and he was able to get into their gated community. And again, I don't want to say the city, but he was able to get into their gated community and try to enter into the home. And so it's just this rising trend. It's not just happening in one city or one area, but this really ties me into, did you see the videos of what happened to Taylor Swift at a New Jersey restaurant?
I saw like the crowd outside of the restaurants.
Yes.
It was like
eerie.
Unreal. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
Right. And I think what's scary is, this is something I talked about too in my former pod that came out, but that what these fans, because you look at the video and it's a lot of like young girls, young boys, and I mean, shame on their parents, but I think that what they don't realize, and I'm not a security expert, mind you, this is just, I'm obsessed with the internet and why certain things happen the way they do, but what my belief is, there's two reasons this is really dangerous if you think that you're just a harmless fan showing up to these private events. It was a wedding rehearsal dinner, not even the actual wedding that was like even then would be weird. But it's this really small, random restaurant in New Jersey. So I believe what happened, I saw a video on my feed where someone was like, oh, when Taylor Swift walks into, I don't want to say the restaurant name, And it was them at like a booth, and they were filming her walking in.
Yeah.
I believe it was because that video went viral that then hundreds of fans showed up. There were blockages. The police had to be called.
Yep.
Taylor had to be escorted out. And there were a couple other celebrities at this dinner, like Lana Del Rey. But what gave it away that they were there for Taylor is they were literally chanting, Taylor,
Yeah.
Taylor, Taylor. So these people might be harmless. And I don't think that true fans that like, I think respect is more important than love. And like, if you respect someone, that shows through. Whereas like you can say, oh, I love them, that's why I'm showing up to these things. That's worse than if you just say, I respect them and I'm going to give them distance. But essentially, when you show up to these events, the people that are stalking Taylor Swift, which I'll get into, there's been a couple, they're constantly looking for ways to rationalize their behavior when they're being told that it's wrong. They obviously already think that it's fine, which is why they're acting the way they are. But they have people telling them, they have their lawyer, they have their family members, they have the court system, the police saying, you cannot break into Taylor Swift's home, you cannot show up to where she is. They're telling them this, but then they say there's 1,000 teenage girls who just did it last night.
I also think
It's normal.
too there's this what is the word I'm looking for? There is this like division of guilt. When it's like, if you're the only person who shows up to Mom Taylor Swift, like you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because you're like, oh, whoa, like I'm the person who ruined this intimate night for her. Whereas if 1,000 people are there, you're like, well, she would have been interrupted whether I was here or not. So like, I might as well just go so that I can see her. You know what I mean? Like once more larger quantity gets involved, it's like people feel less of an individualized sense of responsibility, which is unhealthy. And also why, again, I think adds to your point as like why these things have been snowballing. Like I think the more that they happen in more frequency, the more normalized it becomes, and this division of guilt continues to where people are just like, I don't care, like let me go do it.
Exactly. A dumb idea isn't as dumb if other people are doing it with you.
Yeah.
And I also think that with these events, there are, you know, the people in someone like Taylor Swift's team, they're trained to recognize a handful of faces. Like the public doesn't even know about these faces, but they know about certain people. And it's way easier to scan a smaller crowd from a block away. But now when they have to scan thousands of faces anytime Taylor Swift is in movement, those 5 extra seconds that it took them to look through the crowd could be life-ending. And I don't think people understand that. It's easier for these people to blend in a crowd. And so I think that, you know, just these people stalking these celebrities, you might think you're doing it peacefully, but you're really normalizing the behavior. And then,
or even if you're doing it peacefully, you're enabling somebody who's not.
Exactly. And then on the note of specifically Taylor Swift too, when I was doing research, Taylor Swift did an interview with Elle magazine in 2018, and she said that she carries army-grade bandages with her in her purse everywhere she goes that can help stop the bleeding if you get stabbed or shot.
That's really
sad.
Yeah.
That is
sad.
That's an abnormal response to an abnormal situation that she's in.
Right.
And on top of that, there's been multiple instances of people showing up to her apartment. So a couple years ago, a man was able to break in twice to where she lived. The first time he took a shovel to the front door of the apartment and then was arrested. And then that same year, he brought a ladder to her apartment, scaled the ladder, broke her window of her apartment with his bare hands, got into her apartment. She wasn't home, thank God, took a shower and then took a nap in her bed. Which tells me that person...
terrifying.
That's almost more scarier to me than someone who's like heightened sense and like knows they need to get in and get out. Like whatever their awful intentions are, the fact that he was able to take a nap in her bed means that his nervous system was so slowed down and calm with what he was doing that he didn't realize that it was awful, or he didn't care, which is almost
worse. Or was
worse.
getting some sense of gratification from it.
Exactly. And then there was also a separate situation with someone else recently where he took a Greyhound bus from Florida to New York City, showed up to her apartment, was able to get into an elevator, and a resident that was there realized something was wrong and they started talking to him, and he brought up Taylor Swift, and they knew immediately it
Yeah.
was odd. I also feel like if you know a celebrity, you don't call them by their full name. Like, you wouldn't be like, I'm here to see Taylor Swift. You're like, I'm here for my friend Taylor. Like, right,
Yeah.
you know, for those little things.
That's a good point.
And he was in the elevator, and the smart resident told the guy, oh, you're here to see her. They played along, and they said, if you want to get into her building, you actually have to leave the building, go around the side, and knock on this specific door to get into her apartment. The man believed the resident, followed the instructions. The resident called for help, and he was arrested while trying to knock on that door.
Whoa, that's so smart by them.
Yeah, so they were able to get him out of the building and lock
Shout out to
everything.
Taylor Swift's neighbor.
Yeah. So it just shows you, like, I think that she has all of these accomplishments. A lot of celebrities do. Something similar has happened to Kim Kardashian, but, like, there is no price that you can put on a peace of mind. And it's so sad that that's something that they now have to sacrifice. And the internet, I think, has now sped up the access that these deranged people have to them.
Sped up for sure is really a scary thing too.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about this yesterday, how I felt like specifically the For You page kind of like unintentionally enables it or people to discover celebrities faster.
Yeah.
Because even though the social media always existed, like I felt like if you see Taylor Swift at a cafe and you post it on your Instagram story, it's going out to like the 2,000 people who follow you, who are then like, maybe some of them will send it to a friend.
Yeah.
Then some of that, and eventually like it'll get on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like eventually, or like some celebrity account or TMZ account will like post
blah, blah,
it.
yeah.
But I think like the thing about the For You page is you can literally reach like 100,000 people in an hour.
Yeah.
Right? It's like unlimited discoverability,
Yeah.
which is great for, you know, small businesses and creators and people pursuing things online. But weirdly in this circumstance, I think it makes the spread of information too quick.
Yes.
That
and
causes harm, potentially.
you make such a good point. And, like, specifically the way that the TikTok algorithm works is it's very localized. So when it sends out a batch of your videos to test to like the first 100,000 people,
it'll
send
people
ones to
in your
area.
vicinity.
I recently went to San Francisco for a music festival, and my entire For You page was videos about San Francisco that I'd never seen when I lived in LA.
Yep.
And so those are just some like of the bigger notes. And then I want to talk about, you know, if someone still doesn't believe that fame is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a person, I want to talk about specifically celebrities who have been killed by fans and fame. And then I want to end it on talking about, after that, more so like obsessed fans that emulate celebrities, and why I think that's a whole other beast to tackle. Maybe not as immediate danger, but just like an odd trend as well. But okay, so skip for like 5 minutes if this is upsetting, because it was upsetting for me to even report on, but I think it's important to put into context, like, oh, it's so glamorous to be like chased by fans down the street. That's like saying, oh, it's so glamorous that this girl has a boyfriend that was so obsessed with her that he killed her. Like, it's not romantic.
Right.
Okay, so John Lennon, he was shot in the back 4 times by a fan who had asked for his autograph a few hours prior.
Terrifying.
And what was scary to me about the parallel between John Lennon and Taylor Swift, and God forbid, I hope this is just us talking about it and nothing ever happens, and I don't want to put that out there, so we're talking about it more in a protection way. But John Lennon, people always describe the Taylor Swift fandemonium right now as Beatlemania, like the closest thing our generation has seen to Beatlemania. Something similar that John Lennon dealt with, and he's someone who is probably one of the most successful and financially successful artists in the world, went on one of the biggest tours in the world. He probably understood certain security measures and what he needed to protect himself, and even he wasn't able to protect himself from this. The biggest star in the world in the 1900s and, you know, early 2000s wasn't even able to protect himself.
And even then social media wasn't as like developed
Yeah,
as
that's
it is
true.
now.
That's
like
true.
I think it's only honestly probably even more potential threats out there
now,
than there were back then.
Totally. But it's like, if even, you know, this huge star was failed by the system and fans, it's, you know, it's just scary.
It is really scary.
Another one, Gianni Versace, he lived in Miami, and he was shot twice in the head on his way home from a coffee run. The man claimed that it was like a domestic dispute, and they were friends for years from the 90s. Upon further investigation, they found no links that the men had ever met.
Whoa.
So the person like convinced them that we were friends and it was a dispute. Another one, this one hit me hard because I used to watch her covers growing up, but Christina Grimmie, she was a YouTuber, and she was also on The Voice, but she had a meet and greet, and a man showed up, posed as a fan. He had 2 guns and a knife in his backpack, and he shot and killed her. Her brother jumped into action and tackled the man. The man eventually killed himself, but it was maybe her brother even saved lives as well.
Yeah,
but,
of the audience.
And I think it shows too, this Christina Grimmie situation to me feels more reminiscent of what we're seeing with these live streamers getting mobbed, where it's almost scarier too when you have this level of fame that's almost modeling what we're seeing with like Beatlemania and Taylor Swift, but then not having the financial means to have security. I think that's what's scary, what we're seeing with some influencers.
Or the unpredictability of it. I'm sure it's like it probably doesn't make sense for any of these people to like have full-time security, nor do they make enough money.
Exactly.
But like, I'm sure Taylor Swift does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which, although like not an ideal situation for her either, does give her like a guaranteed sense of protection or something if she's like going to Target, or I mean, she probably doesn't go to Target anymore. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think there's a like being in that middle ground can sometimes make it weirdly scarier or dangerous as well. And I also think that both of those situations prove that it's not just limited to like mainstream fame, but is like any sort of parasocial relationship that can exist because of the internet. You know, like if someone perceives you and you don't perceive them, then they can be a threat to your life, even if you don't know that they exist.
Did you see what Mr. Beast said recently about his safety on the Colin and Samir podcast?
Yeah, where he talked about like now that he is like gotten to this level of fame that like if he gets recognized anywhere, he has a role, he has to leave within 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I thought it was so interesting that he mentioned ever since, it's these little things you wouldn't think of but are fascinating if you work on the back end. Ever since he started dubbing his YouTube videos in other languages, he used to be able to travel outside of America and not really like be in danger or get recognized. He started dubbing his videos recently and now has skyrocketed to even more fame. And he said that he recently traveled to Chile. And one person, airport, I think. He said that one person asked him for a photo in the airport. And he didn't want to be rude, so he takes the photo. They post it on Twitter. People in Chile realize Mr. Beast is in Chile. By process of elimination, there's only so many hotels. We're able to figure out what hotel he was in. They were running through the hotel, every single floor, knocking on every single door, trying to figure out what room he was in. And Mr. Beast had to like fork out money to pay for extra security for the hotel because people were mobbing it and waiting outside.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so he's saying like now he's almost at a place where it's not really even like safe or enjoyable to leave anymore.
I remember him saying that.
It's so fascinating and scary. But and then just a few more. Selena, she was a singer and she had a woman who became obsessed with her. She had memorabilia and images of Selena in her apartment before even meeting the singer, met her, was able to kind of under this guise position herself as like, let me be first the manager of your boutique and then the president of your fan club. And she got really close to Selena. Selena eventually realized that the woman was also embezzling money. And then the woman convinced her to come to a motel room to kind of like sort it out and shot and killed Selena instantly and said that it was because of a dispute. But like, again, if she had a gun on her going into that meeting, it makes me think it was premeditated, but I don't know. Another one, Princess Diana, she wasn't killed. Also, this is like so uncomfortable to talk about. We never really talk about deep topics, but again, it just shows the seriousness of the danger. Just a few more. Princess Diana was killed in a car accident, and the coroner actually ruled that it was because of the unsafe driving of the cars around her, which was the paparazzi. And her driver was driving unsafe, trying to escape them. So she didn't die as a result of a specific fan, but literally because of fame. She died because of fame. The paparazzi chasing her.
That's insane.
And then another one, Sharon Tate, a little different, but the man who led the group that ended up killing her was mad that he didn't get a record deal and kind of basically put revenge on Hollywood and killed her and a handful of other people. But she was the most notable. And then the last one, thank God they didn't die, but I think people forget about Kim Kardashian. And she was held at gunpoint and tied up by masked men in the bathtub while they raided her hotel room.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, and they had stalked her for, it wasn't like a random attack. They had been stalking her for years leading up to that.
Whoa.
So they were in the hotel room asking her for certain valuables that only someone would know, like the exact amount of valuables that only someone would know if they were stalking her. And they later admitted to having stalked her and knowing exactly what items she might have on her on that trip.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I recently had an experience where I was like on the outside looking in of like celebrities get stalked. So I was hanging out with two of my friends who were visiting LA, and they wanted to go to Sir because
Oh my God.
they're huge fans of VPR.
Yes.
So like, oh, let's like go and get a reservation. So I was like, okay, sure, whatever. We went, coincidentally, the night we go, not planned. The entire cast happened to be there filming. So they were not letting people in unless you had a reservation.
Okay.
And there was like lines of people outside,
Yeah.
like peeking through, because it's like gated. It's
creepy,
And
yeah.
they were like peeking through these tiny hedges and stuff like that. And like, don't get me wrong, like I thought it was like fun. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God, like it's
I'm
cool. They're
sure,
shooting
yeah.
a show. Like it's so nice to see, blah, blah, blah. But then like I was talking to some of these people who were there looking at them too. And for us, it was like literally a coincidence.
Yeah.
But then some of these people who I met, which most of which were like older, like in their 30s
It's
and
odd,
40s.
yeah.
And there was these group of 3 women, and they're like, oh yeah, we knew they'd be here. Like we've been checking their Instagram stories for the past 4 days. And they were just like seemingly very normal, like mature women in their
Yeah.
30s and 40s. And I was like, that's a little fucking weird.
I think so.
It's a little fucking weird. And it goes to show like like anybody will do it.
Yeah.
And it's people you least expect. And also too is like, I started to feel uncomfortable. Like I was just in a crowd of people looking at them, but I could tell they were like,
Yeah.
like
they're
they
at
could
work.
tell that they were being stared at, and eventually security came out and like told people they needed to back away from a certain location because they were making people uncomfortable and disrupting the filming, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, like it's not that deep. Like you're gonna look at them for
Yes.
15 seconds, like eating a plate of spaghetti. Like what is so, like,
It's this like fishbowl thing
It
of like
is-
wanting
it's
to watch
so
someone.
weird.
That instance that it kind of reminds me of the Christina Grimmie situation where these people, especially this last year, reached this level of fame. But yet I don't think that like necessarily the VPR cast has the financial resources to match the security
Right.
threat that they might be in now.
right. That's,
So
sorry,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
No, I thought that was so interesting that you said. And now I want to switch gears a little bit. It's a little bit of a lighter note, but still odd. And it's kind of this other, kind of a similar take, but like obsessed fans who kind of emulate stars and why it's also just very odd. Did you see recently that there was a TikToker named Ashley who went to the Grove as a YouTube prank and
The
tried
Taylor
to
Swift
act?
girl.
Yeah, she tried to act like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this.
I'm not a fan either. One, I think it mocks the actual danger that Taylor Swift is in. Two, I think that you could cause an actual security issue where someone
Yeah.
gets trampled or hurt.
Easily.
Yes.
Not even that. They go for like parking. Like,
Yeah.
do you know how many people would rush to the Grove
I know.
if Taylor Swift was there? Like, there would be hundreds of cars on the road. People
Yeah.
would be sprinting. They would be parking in the middle of the lot because the parking lot would
Yeah.
be full. Like, it really would cause mass hysteria.
And I really want there to be like a psychological study on these people who try to like emulate other stars, because I can't think of any situation where it's successfully led to a career. Like, why they
It's
do
literally,
it.
they want to feel the feeling of what it feels to be like them for
be important.
20 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they can take off the gear and the getup and like go back to their normal life. Taylor Swift can't. You know,
Right.
Ariana Grande can't. But also what I thought was funny about that video is like no actual celebrity goes to the Grove. There's like a Nordstrom's and a
Yeah.
Sprinkles cupcake.
Right.
You're not doing your shopping there.
Right. It's also so public. No celebrity would ever go there.
No, none. And what's also weird to me about this specific woman is she's like in her 30s with kids and like was a nurse at one point. I'm like, I think it's different when maybe someone who's younger acts like a celebrity, because like you're young, you're trying on different identities. Like the moment that your frontal lobes have fully developed, like let's just not. Like, you know what I mean? Like you
Right.
don't have the excuse of being naive anymore.
Right. And it's one thing to be like, I look like this person. It's a completely other thing to be like, let me dress up as them exactly.
Yeah.
Let me hire a fake security
Yeah.
team and let me go to a public setting
Yeah.
to be potentially or ideally mobbed.
Ideally, yeah.
Because why else are you
ideal.
doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like to be ideally mobbed by random people.
Yeah.
Like it's just, maybe worth some
Embarrassing.
self-reflection.
Yeah.
in
And
my
you
opinion.
can kind of tell in the video she's like smirking, like, yes, like it's
I
working.
know.
Yeah. And then one other note, and then we'll be done with this topic, is there's a girl, her name's Paige Neiman, and she got big on TikTok a couple years ago for mimicking Ariana Grande. Again, back then it was kind of this grace given to her, like she's young,
I remember
she's
this.
a teenager. I think that's always different. But where I think it became almost malicious is she launched an OnlyFans and would promote it by dressing and acting as Ariana Grande.
Yeah, see, that's gross to me. Like, I think that is as bad as deep fake.
Exactly.
Yeah, like if you're pretending to be them.
Yeah.
And directly stating like you should look at me naked because I look like this person.
Yeah.
It's like
Weird. And it for anyone listening who might not know, we're basically saying it's foreshadowing this trend on the internet where people are creating very like either lewd sexual videos or even just videos of people doing awful things, saying awful things, and then they're putting deep fakes of other celebrities over their face to either embarrass the celebrity, get them in trouble, get money for being able to sell it as this celebrity. So
all of it.
It's just a whole thing that I think we're just now seeing the beginning of the way that the internet is kind of impacting it. But I just felt like it was important to talk about because I hope that this conversation leads to some laws or some self-awareness as a society to not act like this. I think especially in America, we're obsessed with celebrities and we idolize celebrities, and yet there's still some disdain towards them that they're not seen as human or we don't want to protect them. So
Right. It's like they're somehow above human and less than human at the same time.
Whoa.
Like it's
chills.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now we can get into yours.
No? Okay, second thing I want to talk about is like Billie Porter, Harry Styles, Anna Wintour, Vogue cover drama.
Okay.
So in December of 2020, why is this a topic now? I don't really know. I don't really know what started it. But the Vogue cover was in December of 2020. Harry Styles was on the cover of Vogue. He was wearing a dress. He was the first man to ever be on the cover of Vogue.
Okay.
Right? After that, apparently, Billie Porter and Anna Wintour had a conversation on the phone, like a private conversation, where he more or less explained to her why he was disappointed in this and why he felt it was queer baiting, and more or less said, and I quote, "Use your power as Vogue to uplift the voices of the degendering fashion movement." And I don't know what Anna Wintour's intentions were. I mean, like, you know what I mean? I think we could do an entire episode on her as a person specifically. However, like, I want to talk about specifically like this concept of queer baiting. And something that Billie Porter said too is he's like, it's not Harry Styles' fault that he happens to be cute and white and straight and fit into the infrastructure that way. I call out the gatekeepers. So like his dilemma or his grievance wasn't with Harry Styles doing it, but more or less like the people who selected him to be the choice as the cover of Vogue. And I, as a gay man, and again, I don't know, I'm just one man with my one perspective. Like, you know, this is just my opinion. I think that sometimes this idea of queer baiting can be harmful to the community and harmful to the exact things that it's trying to champion, like the degendering of fashion. Like, I think this idea of queer baiting kind of antagonizes our own cause, so to speak. So, like, the example I always like to think about is Kit Connor, who was the lead of Heartstopper, not the eyebrows guy, the ginger guy.
Okay.
Kit Connor, him, right? 18-year-old.
Okay.
18-year-old kid playing a high schooler in a movie, right? And like one of the most popular gay TV shows that has come out in the past decade. You know what I mean? When this aired, he was receiving all of this criticism for like queer baiting, and they're like, you shouldn't be the face of this. Netflix should have used their money and resources to uplift someone who is actually part of the community, blah, blah, blah. And by doing that, by calling somebody out for queer baiting, you're instantly assuming that they're straight, right? Because you're saying this is something that a queer person should be doing, not a straight person. And because you're a straight person doing this, you're wrong for doing it. And we should have a queer person there instead. And some cases, that's a correct line of thinking.
Yeah.
I completely agree. But I think it's also important to realize, like, if that person has not come out openly and categorize or define themselves as straight, or if it's someone who's like an 18-year-old kid and still
Doesn't know.
that like you need to give them grace.
Yeah.
And maybe that they were entirely excited to take that role or take that opportunity in the first place because they wanted to explore that side of themselves a little bit more. So then Kit Connor ended up feeling like, because in the midst of this criticism, he came out publicly, and in his like coming out, he said, like, this is really frustrating to me. I feel like anybody who watched the show and is getting mad at me for queer baiting didn't understand the concept of the show to begin with. And I think that that's a fantastic point. And I think specifically with going back to Harry Styles, like, he's someone who's very intentionally never labeled himself. And, you know, I don't know what his sexuality is. I'm not interested in speculating on it. However, I think that when you think of a lot of people who were more feminine presenting, and especially for many years, especially when they identified as straight, like the Freddie Mercurys, like the David Bowies, as they got older, ended up coming out as queer or having, you know, being a part of the community in some way. And I think that it's even harder for them when they're put under this magnifying glass of every single action at all times. Like when someone's telling you, you're gay, you just don't, I know you're gay, you just don't know you're gay yet. Like, that was such a relatable experience, at least for me, like in high school. Like, I remember when I started to realize that I was gay and came out to some of my friends and stuff like that. Like, I knew, but I also had this like innate rage within me that all of these people who bullied me and were bad people were like gonna be told that they were right. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, see, I knew it. It was so obvious he was gay, blah, blah, blah. And that frustrated me so much. And I think that so much of that resentment made it take longer for me to come out. And I think that if that's what's happening to, at least the way I felt on a macro lens of a high school in Virginia, I can only imagine how people in the public eye feel when it's millions of people doing it to every action they take. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a little bit like, to throw around the word queer baiting is a little dangerous, is essentially what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think it's something that you should antagonize someone or accuse someone of lightly.
Yeah. Unless they're like, yeah, I'm straight, I was just doing that for attention. Like,
right. Or like, and I think that there are blatant examples when it's not right. Like if this was like a Pride cover, that's not right. You know what I mean? That's a blatant example of like, hey, this is the 1 month you have your issue to dedicate towards like this specific community. Like, you need to do better, right? There are a million examples of when it's really important to be uplifting someone of the community. But and you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I think
it's a very nuanced topic, and I don't think there's a right answer.
I wonder if, like, just as an outsider looking in, obviously I'm like a straight white woman, I wonder if there's this feeling of like betrayal maybe for someone where they've been told since they were a kid, like, you're not straight enough, like, you don't fit in with us, like, you're not straight enough. So then they outwardly start to express and maybe explore another identity, and then they're told, like, you're not gay enough, like, you're not, and then it's like, where do I fit in?
That narrative is something that I've actually heard a lot from friends specifically who are bisexual, where they feel like they're like either not straight enough or not gay enough, and always like feeling like they're somehow an outsider of both communities. In an interesting way.
I wonder if like even in some ways queer baiting too can translate to like bi erasure of like, well, you're saying you have to be one or the other, but it's like, what if one, maybe I don't know, or two, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Right.
And also going back to the point about Harry Styles, like, to me, I feel like if the goal is truly to have this degendering of fashion, which I very much believe in, and I think most queer people believe in as well, then isn't it counterintuitive to say, like, oh, a straight man shouldn't be doing this, only gay people should be doing this?
Right.
Because then to me, it's like, well, then you're doing the same thing that other people are doing to us, but reverse. You know what I mean? You're saying, like, that's just for gay people instead of saying that's just for straight people or whatever. Like, to me, it's at the very least, like, progressive of the message that I want delivered to society. And also, too, I think, like, Harry Styles specifically is really the symbol of non-toxic masculinity in our society. Like, I really think that's one of the things that he stands for, whether it's directly or inadvertently. Like, the fact that your girlfriend is attracted to a man in a dress.
Yeah.
When you think that, like, you have to be this, hyper masculine, and like our society and like the male gaze is entirely built upon like this perceived idea of like what women want in a masculine man. Whereas if you ask most women, I'm sure that they value sensitive and expressive qualities significantly more than that. However, Harry being that symbol, even if he were a straight man, I feel like is good for society, at least to me, in my opinion. And again, I don't want to like categorize him as anything, but I think that it's interesting. And also I think that there's a benefit to it being an A-list, not openly queer celebrity. Because then again, like if the goal is really to degender fashion, if the cover is somebody who is openly gay, then the first thing the far right is going to say is like, oh, well, that's just because they're gay.
Yeah.
Like, that's just for gay people.
So you weaponize it.
Right. Or, like, people who are just very ignorant and closed-minded. We're like, oh, yeah, well, he did that because he's gay. He did blank. Like, they get to use it as a scapegoat in that sense. Whereas I think when you put somebody who's, like, very intentionally in the middle, like, very, very outwardly, almost like
them.
Queer expressing, but, like, very, very outwardly straight presenting and has, like, a very, very mass appeal of, like, a straight audience, it's, like, somebody perfectly in the middle is almost like the most beneficial choice.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird...
Still, it's hard. And I think even the way you're articulating it, too, it shows, like, when you were showing me the Billie Porter interviews, really coming to this conclusion of, like, I think the internet wants to put people against each other and be like, this person came out the winner, this person came out the loser. But I almost think, like, also Billie Porter had great examples. And it's, like, had great points. And it's, like, both of them can be right.
Right, and I don't think any of the things Billie Porter said are wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe in this circumstance, they weren't as, I don't want to say like warranted, because they're always warranted, but like, I don't know, like even Harry Styles too, like I think it would be one thing to me, like if it was somebody who was a straight man or non-identified man that had like never worn a dress before, but then they just did it for the cover of Vogue. You know what I mean? Because then it's like, okay, you're doing it for a monetization opportunity. Like you're like, oh, let me do this to get popular from it, to like be in headlines. But like I think Harry Styles has proven by this point that like he's gonna wear some crazy shit regardless of like whether or not it's on a magazine cover. And you know what I mean? So it's like, to me, at the very least, it is genuine with his, regardless if we look at it from a sexual identity perspective, personal style perspective.
Totally. It makes me think of, there's this one TikToker that I love. His name's Zach Wilmore, and he has like 2 million followers, but the way that he initially blew up on TikTok a couple years ago was he wore a wedding dress to school, like high school, and people were like, why would you do that? But the point that he made like has always stuck with me, and he said, you know, I'm confident enough to literally wear a crazy wedding dress to class at high school, and the reason I'm doing it is it gives silent permission to someone out there in my class who maybe they've wanted to try something new, they're afraid of getting bullied, they want to express themselves in a certain way, but it takes the target off their back, and now it gives them silent permission, like, well, maybe I want to wear this more feminine shirt, and I was afraid, but if Zach wore a wedding dress to math class and was able to do it, maybe I can do this, and I don't have to be as afraid.
Right. It's like by somebody opening the door the first time. It gives like silent permission, because it's always going to be less than the other thing.
Yeah, and they know that like if they're more popular, like with Harry Styles, it's like Harry Styles kind of like puts the target on his back and allows others to maybe then express it.
Yeah, totally.
Under that.
And I feel like Harry Styles does give that silent Harry Styles does give that silent permission to straight men that are maybe, or like queer or like questioning them. To be like, well, if this guy's doing it on the most grand stage there is in life, like me wearing flared pants to Starbucks on Tuesday is like not that big of a deal.
It takes the target off my back. Totally. I love that.
But yeah, that's just what I thought about the situation. I don't know.
It's one of those things where there's no conclusion. It's just open-ended.
Yeah, it's just open-ended.
I like that.
Exactly. And I also like the idea of just like having a discussion from both sides, regardless of what your conclusion is.
There's no, on the internet, there doesn't always have to be a winner and loser. Because when there's a winner and loser, then just everyone loses at the end when you have to pick a side. Like, just allow things to exist. And I always love to say, when it comes to certain things, is like, sometimes when I speak out, I'll say, this is my opinion right now, but it's subject to change if new information becomes available.
That's
and
really
not
beautiful.
Just being like,
Yeah.
And I'd love to get into like your predictions and thoughts, and then we'll save bad ideas for after you finish like the rest of your thoughts as well.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about was like, do you think having a genre as a music artist is dying?
I almost think it's not necessarily that having a genre as a music artist is dying, because we do see randomly like country music for the first time ever is at the top of the charts, of the Billboard charts. I think it's that what we formerly saw as the formula for pop music, which pop literally stands for popular music.
Right.
There was a formula. That formula is no longer working.
It's kind of like cracked.
It's completely cracked. And like now, some artists in the pop music genre are like trying to figure out this formula is no longer working. So, and putting themselves in a bucket can also be limiting.
Right. And also, I just feel like most artists to me have like diverged into multiple points. Like a great example I think of is like Drake. Like someone could look at me and say Drake is pop, Drake is rapper hip hop, or Drake is R&B. And I don't think I could disagree with like any of those sentiments. Like he's kind of all three at once at the same time. Or it's like a song will feel super rap, but then the next song is like so pop. Like,
and that's what he does best, is being a chameleon. Like I think the reason he's been in the public eye for over a decade now is like he never let the music industry put him in a box, and every time he reemerged, he had a new sound, he had a new flow, he had a new style.
I also think it's why he has the most feature streams of any artist in history.
He dips his toes
because
by
he's really able to like dip his toes into like whatever is like the primary point of the song. You know what I mean? Even if it's somebody else's. But I mean, I think even because of that too, like another artist I was really thinking about is like Rihanna's last album was Anti, which was in 2016. But my favorite thing about that album was like it felt like there was no genre to it. Like I felt like Love on the Brain and Higher felt like blues. Like it literally felt like Rihanna singing the blues.
Experimental.
And then, you know, Needed Me was a bit more of that like R&B hip hop style that we're familiar with. But then like Work was just like a pop club song. Like just a pop club song. You know what I mean? And I loved that album so much because I felt like it satisfied every emotional desire that I go to music for. You know what I mean? Like no matter what mood you're in, you can pick something from that album to do it to you. And then, or I think other artists are, like a thing that's become popular is like they'll really have a specific genre to like that album, but not a genre to like their entire catalog.
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, where like they can release an album where it just randomly feels like more rock or something. Like I think Billie kind of did that with her most, what was the name of her most recent album? The Happier Than Ever was on. Like it just felt like the most like punk she's ever been. And I loved that. But then like I don't think it needs to define her style for eternity. Like I think that she could go back to singing a song like Bad Guy or like, and it would be great. So I hope that we start to see more artists kind of killing the idea of a genre. But I think it's funny that you brought up country because I was thinking the same thing too. Of that it feels like country is like the only thing that is still like its own definitive island.
And I think part of that is, and why it charts so high on the Billboard, is Billboard still for some reason considers radio streams as such a big bucket. And country music fans, I think, are like the opposite of early adopters with technology. I think they're a little bit more like, they
probably
enjoy the tradition.
Higher average age as well.
Higher average age, and they're the ones that are listening to the radio and like listening to country radio, and it's bumping the streams up in that way. Whereas other genres are so fragmented, like people, you know, a pop music person isn't listening to the same 5 songs on the radio. They're now listening to 20 songs by 20 different artists in one sitting. And I also heard a TikTok, it was from, I always bring her up, but one of my favorite, Fluently Forward. And she did a video recently where she was talking about Demi Lovato, and she's like, I think that Demi needs to cut the grunge act and go like full jazz. Like, no one's really doing jazz right now. Like, and also she has the voice for it. And have you heard, there's this new artist, her name's Laffy, and she's blowing up right now. She does like old school jazz. She just put out a single called, I think it was California and Me last night. And it's like her and this one opera house. They like made a song together. And it's like, I think we're going to see, and jazz music obviously also has roots. I want to nod to like the Black community, and they're like the originators of it. And I think that, I hope that we see more artists, even like, I think John Batiste in some ways, but like, I do think though also in pop music as well, we're going to see this movement away from like almost hyper pop, kind of what we saw with like early Doja Cat, and it's going to push more in towards like a more slow jazz. I think that'll be the next trend in music.
I would love that. My saxophone is my favorite instrument.
Really? Yes.
So like I just am like anything with the saxophone sign me up.
I could see The Weeknd putting out a jazz album.
He would be really good at a jazz album. Yeah. And he's another one of those people who's been a chameleon.
Yeah, like, and I think after he was on a specific show that I can't say the name of because of the strike, he got a lot of like pushback for his role in that. Yeah. So I could see him trying to reinvent as like an old Hollywood respected guy.
Yeah. I have a theory that Justin Bieber should put out an R&B album. Ooh. Especially after this dilemma with Scooter Braun and everyone leaving Scooter Braun. I think that they are all in a very like pinnacle moment for their music career, and they need to do something that differentiates them from like what were they with Scooter Braun, especially as he's someone who's known for being very petty and coming after people's masters or catalogs. Like, they need to be prepared to pivot their sense of music into something new for the worst case scenario. So I think Justin Bieber should put out an R&B album. Why do I think this? Starting, he has a music video coming out with SZA.
Oh my God.
And I felt like that was like a pairing that I expected, but I love to see together, and like randomly makes a lot of sense. And also when I think about all of a lot of my favorite Justin Bieber songs, he has done collabs with Daniel Caesar. He's done collabs with Chance the Rapper. Like, I almost feel like he's been in like pop, was like the face of boy pop, male figure, the Justin Timberlake of our time.
Never say never.
Yeah, for like 5 years. Yeah. And I think that it's going to reach like, not its peak, but like its potency. Yeah. Like, it's not interesting to see anymore because we're gonna get a new Justin Bieber 13-year-old eventually. Yes. So I think if he were to pivot into being a little more cross-genre, like again, like I felt like Peaches was like such a popular song for people that like blew up. Yeah. Because it felt like him like having this laid back style. Yes. And like having this like maturity. And a feature like Daniel Caesar, was so like, I think he needs to put out a song with SZA. I think he needs to put out another song with Daniel Caesar, but on Daniel Caesar's album. I think he should collaborate with people that are like, I don't know who do I
more established in R&B.
Yeah, even Frank. I know, hey, like Justin Bieber and Frank Ocean are best friends.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, like I think that if he transitioned his next album into a more slower pace, not necessarily just club music, he would differentiate his career away from the era Scooter Braun had control over him.
Oh, I see. I think me just now fixating on one idea, he needs to go into jazz. You guys, this is going to be my hyper fixation. Jazzy Bieber.
Jazzy Bieber.
There we go. I mean, his voice fits like anything. Like, that's what Justin Bieber truly is one of those people where like he was meant to be a singer. Like, his voice is just so unique. So maybe even like Justin Bieber and Post Malone. I'm surprised they haven't collabed yet.
They have.
I could be wrong. Okay, they have.
They have. I'm dumb. But even like Justin Bieber's honestly kind of another chameleon. Like even Despacito was like one of his biggest songs. And I think that he needs to be smart about who he aligns himself with.
I think so too. You're so right about now that there's this like post Scooter era that's happening.
Yeah, because it's definitely going to be like, I think there has to be some sort of like legal situation happening.
Yeah, well, and if they flop in their next era, then they kind of give Scooter ammo to be like, see, you need me back.
Exactly. Or to just like come for them. Yeah. Like, he's known for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, I think they need to like build the walls before the attack comes, totally. Is what I'm trying to say.
I love that.
But yeah, we can do Bad Ideas Only. Okay. Or what do you want to do?
I want to hear about your Olivia Rodrigo rebrand.
Oh,
because I didn't hear like the theory behind it.
You're so right. Okay. Olivia Rodrigo is going to rebrand away from purple to red.
Really?
Oh, sorry. I have a theory. Olivia Rodrigo is about to completely ditch the color purple and rebrand into red.
What?
And I have a few pieces of evidence to support my theory.
Okay.
So to start, it all goes back to what was the first single she released for this album?
Vampire.
Vampire. What does the album cover look like? Black and white with a very, very slight thing of purple. I think the purple represents her childlike innocence and that wonder of her being a young, creative person. Because Sour was all purple. However, Vampire, it feels like she's been drained of that color because the life was sucked out of her, literally. And what is the one thing repairing her? This one piece of childlike innocence she still feels like she's barely holding on to. That touch with like what made her fall in love with music in the first place, right? Let's go to the second single, Bad Idea, Right. Now this time it still has purple in the background. However, the purple is darker, significantly darker. Also, the purple album cover of Guts is significantly darker, which I think is meant to signify this stepping away, maturity of this light purple color into like a more serious adult, more serious things, talking about people sucking the life out of you.
Dang.
Right? So Bad Idea, Right. But what is the thing? What is the text? Red. She's writing it in red lipstick. What is she wearing in the music video? Red lipstick. What is she wearing in the Guts album cover? She's wearing a black shirt, but what's under it?
The red.
A red bralette. This video has so much red in it. Red is the dominant color. If you look at the lips of every single person in the music video, they're releasing red lipstick. If you look at the uniforms of the cheerleaders, they're wearing red. If you look at any of the text that pops up on screen, it's the color red. If you look at the costumes, if you look at Olivia's necklace, if you look at the color of Olivia's ring, everything is red. There is a clear transition from purple to red. She's intentionally putting the color purple and the color red next to each other. So then we get the end of the music video where she's finally pulling up to her ex-boyfriend's house to make the bad idea. When she's on the way there, in the bus, she gets splashed in the face with a red Slurpee. Like red is just hitting her in the face. And I think red is meant to symbolize like her next chapter, right? Like that's why it's hitting her in the face. It's an abrupt like coming into who she is next, right? She then steps out of the bus into the rain to her ex-boyfriend's house. She's wearing a light purple sweater. It's the only piece of light purple in the entire music video. Wow. She then takes it off. What is she wearing under the light purple? Red.
Wait, what?
She then gets into her ex-boyfriend's bed where she's laying there. She's laying like this, looking at the ceiling. No purple in sight, only red. It slowly pans out. There's fire, red fire next to her. Also, all of the things on the floor that are in the boyfriend's apartment, red. So I am convinced that she is dropping these Easter eggs and that either her next single or like next album, something like we're going to see the first time she steps away from this purple color and it's going to be red as the primary color of her brand.
Whenever she puts out like her actual album, they should sell the vinyl as like a red vinyl.
Yeah, or I think it would be cool because vinyls are two-sided. So what if it's purple on one and red on the other?
Well, and also just me as a woman referring to like Mother Nature, but red is like the ultimate symbol of womanhood. Because it's like when you become a woman.
It is the ultimate symbol of womanhood.
And it's like almost more of a creative way for her to transition from Disney star to like now. Yeah. Like it's like using color as a nod to like, okay, I'm shedding like that purple innocence, like you said, to like now, you know, and even appealing to her audiences, they're growing older as well.
Right, and I also think it's very intentional, not a shift, but a transition.
Yeah.
It goes from light purple to black and white with purple to dark purple with red. And now I think it will be just red. Like, I think there's an intentional color story happening.
That is, like, at first when you said it, I was like, okay, it'll be a cool, like, marketing thing. And then you're telling me, like, all the, like, actual evidence in the music video. And I was like, wait, what?
I know. That's what I'm telling you. I'm convinced it's right. Like, and if it's not, I think it's a huge marketing missed opportunity. I think she should transition to red and then release a lip kit. I've been saying this.
Oh,
it would be so smart. Yeah. The entire Bad Idea Right music video is her writing lipstick on the mirror. I think it would be so easy for her to come up with shade names like Blood Red for Vampire. I think it would be cool if one of the shade ranges was named like you know, like part of the song where it goes like, I can't hear my thoughts, and it's the girls going like, like they're going like that. Yeah. And so it's like ah in the sense of
Yeah.
like I can't hear my thoughts,
Yeah.
but also ah the sound you make when you like open your mouth as a doctor. Like I feel like there's so many
symbolism.
yeah, easy ways for her to put it out as a product. It would be such a good collaboration.
What if she wears a red dress to like the VMAs or the
She
Grammys?
was spotted in London wearing red dresses all the time.
Dude.
Not only that, a lot of people were theorizing that the specific red dress was meant to mirror her look from High School Musical, the musical 1.
Dang. So she's really like, this was a version of me and now it's the older version of me.
Yes.
A nod. Wow, that was so good.
Isn't that crazy?
I love that. That was amazing.
But yeah, I mean, we didn't have
we do. I know we dove deep with these. I love it though. Should we
What
do
do you
bad
wanna do?
ideas only?
Let's do one each.
One each. Okay.
One bad idea only each.
Okay. And then save the rest for TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay, find us on TikTok, you guys. Okay.
Or shorts if you're on YouTube. They're there.
Yeah. I have a bad idea only for, okay, Selena Gomez.
Okay.
Airbnb needs her for a Super Bowl commercial this upcoming year.
Really?
I know you're like, what's the correlation?
Yeah, why? Why?
The vision came to me when I was listening to her new song, Single Soon.
Okay. Banger.
Literally closed my eyes. It came to me.
Love that.
It'll be like a Love Island villa,
Mm-hmm.
which is really trendy. I feel like Super Bowl commercials are always a nod to whatever trended that year.
Okay.
So it's a Love Island villa, and you hear her song playing in the background, and then you hear the narrator voice, and it's like, a hot new bombshell has entered the villa. And you see like a slow pan of someone walking out.
Mm-hmm. The heels. They love the heel shot.
The heel shot. Hint, it's Selena Gomez. So she's walking out, and you see these like shocked faces on everyone, like all the contestants. They're like, oh my God. And then it slowly pans up as she walks out to their little group. And then it's like silence. And it's Selena. And in her dry humor, she's like, wait, where's the new single? And then Sarah Hyland, the host of USA Love Island, is like, it's you. You're the hot new single. And she's like, oh no. Like, I'm seeing it in the way that Selena delivers humor.
Yeah.
Oh no. I just found this place on Airbnb and I booked a room. Are you guys staying here too? And then it's like this song, like her song playing. I think that would be so iconic to be like, no, like I'm not here.
I think that they should make it a special where it's like a discounted promotion for single travelers or for like single bedroom stays. Because that would be iconic. And I also feel like would tie really well into like the era that she's going through now, what her song's about. Like being single, finding independence, both like romantically, but also just like that self-actualization process of being an adult. I feel like is learning how to do things alone.
Exactly.
Like learning how to go to the movies alone, learning how to take a restaurant, learning how to take a vacation by yourself. I'm 24, I've never even taken a vacation by myself. So I think tying in Single Soon as a song to Airbnb as a brand is a great way to align the two.
And they could be like, use code Single Soon for like discounted stays on one bedroom.
Yep.
I love, and you're so right about, I didn't even think about that, but in the vision I saw her even being, because the whole song about Single Soon is like, no, I'm not trying to date. And they're like, hot new single. And she's like,
I'm not interested.
Who's the single? Yeah, she's like, oh, I'm not here to date.
Right.
I'm here because I found this place on Airbnb.
Exactly.
I love that. That would be, I think that could be such a good like ad for Selena.
It would be so good.
Yeah.
My bad idea only is Billie Eilish needs to come out with a hair dye company.
Okay.
Not just hair care, hair dye. I feel like it's the thing she is known for most
So true.
is how she changes her hair color. It's unpredictable. It's like every time it feels like a moment.
Yeah.
And not only that, she always like changes her entire look. Like she'll literally match her entire outfit just based on like what her hair is doing. And you came up with the name, I loved it. It was like Bad Guy Hair Dye, which I thought was so good. And I loved the point you made about Addison Rae last week, where you talked about how like beauty is oversaturated, skincare is oversaturated with celebrity brands. They're the most popular.
So many.
But like this beautification space is really, really prominent. And I think a great way to stay aligned to that, but to do something unique, is to do hair.
Yes.
Like there are the patterns with Tracy Ellis Ross and JVN Beauty with John from Queer Eye, but they're really hair care.
And they're catered to an older demographic that's maybe not going to dye their hair pink on
Right,
Tuesday.
and I feel like dyeing your hair is such like an iconic trope of like being a young person.
Yes.
Like, you haven't lived until you've impulsively dyed your hair blonde,
Exactly.
like, or red, just on a Saturday night mental breakdown.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, like, I think her doing that, her having that young audience would work so well. I also love that it's not a gender-specific product.
Yes.
Like, I think that even things like hair care are generally more
women
targeted. Yeah, just women. But hair dye, hair color can be anyone. And I think it would be such an easy thing for her to promote organically too. Like, every time she dyes her hair, like, oh, I want to do purple next. They just release the purple shade.
Exactly.
Like, they don't release a shade of it until Billie has done it. And then all the Billie fans see it and they're like, oh my God, that's fucking eating. Like, I want to do it too.
Yeah.
So then they do it. I also think it would be sick too, because in a weird way, it would kind of become concert merch. Like, people would go to her concert with, like, I'm dyeing my hair for the Billie concert, to whatever color from her brand. I think there's so many ways that she can incorporate it. And it would be such a great business.
And I think you're so right about, like, the gendered, even when you go, I think that hair dye is one of those things that feels similar to, like, deodorant, or like when people would sell pencils, and it's so gendered for no reason. Like, the women hair dye is like even more expensive than the men hair dye. It's the same exact product. Maybe the women hair dye has, like, more of a volume, but they're basically selling the same exact thing. And why are they, like, so marketed differently in different aisles? It's literally the same product. So it would be cool to have a new hair care, hair dye brand launch that's like, it doesn't have to be in the men or women aisle. It's for anyone. Like, bad guy hair dye.
Both.
Anyone can be a bad guy. Like, be a bad guy.
That's so good.
I love that.
Anyone can be a bad guy is everything.
And I think people love leaning into that, like, anti-villain marketing narrative, which I think Billie has done so well.
Yeah, she really, really has.
I love that. Do we want to finish off by just talking about our 2 points about, one, something we got invited to?
Oh, yeah.
Just on a lighter note, if you've made it this far, like, this is us just hanging out now.
You.
Yeah, we're literally just hanging out as friends now. Okay, so
you tell the story, because it was like you're the one who initiated it.
Yeah, so if you guys, I feel like so many people that watch us are on, like, TikTok or wanting to be on TikTok, and I really just want to, like, the power of capturing things. So I was at a festival, and it was the day that Lana was supposed to perform.
Outside Lands in San Francisco.
And for some reason, I woke up that morning and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to vlog this day to see where it goes. I didn't really know what the narrative of the vlog would be, where it would end up. And as we were going throughout the day, I was like, oh my God, thank God I decided to vlog today, because so many weird random things were happening that were really funny. Like, we went to brunch at 10 a.m. and the chef came out from the back and, like, poured tequila in everyone's mouth at the restaurant, like, person to person. And I was like, this would only happen on a day that I ended up vlogging. And the concert, just in terms of, like, the weather and, like, the stage that Lana was supposed to come out at, being fully transparent, it was miserable. It was wet. It was rainy. It was probably my least favorite festival I've ever been to. I, with peace and love, will never go to Outside Lands again. It was awful.
Honest opinion.
Maybe it was just that day, but even my boyfriend was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to Lana. Like, it's still a couple hours. Like, we're miserable. Thank God Conan Gray came on, saved the day, whatever. And then I finally was able to vlog a couple clips of Lana, but I actually had to leave early because there was, like, an unsafe situation with the shuttle buses. I was super bummed, but I just put it as part of the vlog. Like, you know what? I had to leave Lana early. I was so emotional. I was crying. I love her. And then I went and got McDonald's. Anyways, I posted the vlog just for the people that really love me to watch. I got an email from Interscope Records like a week later that was like, hi Coco, we saw your vlog, like, we saw you trying to see Lana Del Rey at Outside Lands, more on that later, but, like, in the meantime, we'd love to have you come to this event and meet Jon Batiste. He had collabed with Lana a bunch and he had an album coming out, like, come to a dinner. And so NICKY and I went to the dinner. It was so intimate. It was like maybe
it was literally
10
the
people.
most beautiful
event ever.
I think I've ever been invited to.
Yes.
And it wasn't because it was, like, bougie and rich, or, like, it was. Is at this place called Tia Chilo. If you guys have ever heard of it, if you're local to LA, you might have heard of it. It's, like, randomly really popular on TikTok. It's, like, a tiny little venue.
Yeah.
And it's, like, really dim, and everybody sits on the floor, and, like, you just drink tea. Like,
yeah.
You literally just drink tea. And it was, like, I don't know, 15 people, maybe less. And they were, like, literally, they had, like, a little charcuterie spread that was beautiful. The chef came out and walked us through all the dishes, and she was, like, the entire event was literally just designed to, like, have a bunch of people there who were all from different expertises
Yeah,
of
the
various
internet.
different things.
Yeah.
So like there were two people who were entrepreneurs. There was an author.
Yeah.
There was a lawyer. There was me and Colleen. There was somebody who worked at an agency.
Yeah.
There was somebody who was a fashion designer.
Yeah.
There was
Some Interscope
two people who worked in music at Interscope
Yeah.
Records. Like it was just all people who worked in a creative industry, but none of them were like really fully in the same lane.
Yeah.
And the entire thing was like we just wrote topics. They're like write topics about life or like just interesting deep topics, and we just pull them out of a bowl, and then everybody would go around the table and just share. And like it was, I just feel like it's so rare, at least for me since moving here, to have experiences with people where I feel like you're really, really connecting on a deep level.
Yeah.
Like even in things like influencer events, like you're going there and you're invited, and it's like a brand that's like paying for this thing. Everybody's drinking. It's very like, I don't know, just like a little performative. Like
Post
everyone's
IG
dressed up.
stories,
Yeah,
yeah.
like they're encouraging you to post IG stories and stuff like that. Whereas like this was the opposite.
Yeah.
It was like, we invited you here because we want to get to know you as a person.
Yeah.
And John Batiste was literally in the center of it. Like he didn't know anyone either, but he was the one pulling all the questions and like giving his own answers. And I wasn't even that familiar with his music, but like after meeting him as a person, I was like, I want to hear what this person creates. Like he just had such beautiful philosophies in life. And like some of the questions were like, some of them were really, really deep and political. Like one of them was like, what is the difference between cultural appreciation versus appropriation? And like, what does that, mean to you? And everybody was, different people were sharing different backgrounds or experiences that they had. And then some of them were just like, how do you define personal success, and like, how will you know when you've achieved it? And to hear like how a lawyer differentiates personal success from like an author. I don't know. It was just really beautiful, and it was really cool, and everybody there was delightful. We all like had like really like nice embraces and like hugged afterwards. Like it didn't feel like no one was talking over each other. There was never like separate conversations. It was like always one coherent conversation for the entire like 3 hours we were there. And then after that, they invited us to John Batiste's show in Hollywood the next day. They're like, hey, like, yeah, we can give you VIP tickets. Like, you should come. It's so nice.
And guess who was the special performer? Lil Wayne. Like it's so hard to see him live. Like he's like an anomaly.
It was crazy.
So it was such a cool like experience.
It seriously was such a cool experience, and it made me. One, I was just so appreciative.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like these just random people sometimes see your video and like it and do what they can to do something nice for you.
Yeah, I think when you like talk authentically, I could have made like a surface level video about like, here's what it was like seeing Lana, and like already had a narrative in my head when I went into the vlog.
Or like, this is what would go viral if I said it.
Yeah, and I think even then it wouldn't.
You kept it real.
Part of like why I think it got such good engagement was because I was so honest. And even one of the Interscope girls was like, I wish I knew you were there. Like we could have like, set it up so you had a better viewing experience so you weren't like as miserable. But I think that just if you guys are on the internet, like I think I struggle with vlogging and I'm trying to grow in that way, but what I've learned is like going into a vlog or a video, not knowing what the outcome's always going to be.
Yeah.
Just being genuinely curious about where the day might go and documenting it as it unfolds.
Totally, and don't be afraid to fail too.
Yeah.
Like I think you can like, just because you're recording something doesn't mean you have to use it in 6 hours. Like just be like, I'm not going to think too deeply about this until I need to, but I want to document my day.
Totally.
But yeah, that was just a really cool, beautiful thing that happened to us, and we wanted to share.
Yeah. Do you want to end on that note?
I think we should, yeah.
Yeah. We were talkers today, but that's the beauty of a podcast.
We were chatty Cathys.
I always love I love clicking on a podcast when it's over an hour long, though. Like, if it's only 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't want to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it was weird. I felt like we had less topics, but like longer, prolonged conversation.
Yeah.
This episode.
Totally. And let us know kind of what you guys like.
Yeah, let us know what the sweet spot is.
Let us know. We're learning. We're on the learning curve.
Yeah, but it's fun. This has been like one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So
I know. Thank you guys. Mwah. See you later.